Hello and welcome into my studio. Today we're going to paint a really cute cat painting and with moonlight. So I want you to grab your paintbrushes and all those supplies and get ready to paint. We're going to dive right in and make sure to leave me some comments as you go. Ask me any questions you like and I'm happy to answer them. Let's get painting. I'm going to have 3 brushes, 1 inch flat, 1/2 inch flat, and a small round. Primary colors plus black and white. I'm using an 8x10 wrap canvas, but you can grab any size you like. I'm also using a 28-ounce sauce can, like a tomato can, to make a circle shape. But you can use any circle shape thing you have, any kind of cup or just anything that's a circle, or you could just do it freehand. It's totally up to you. Now, for the first color we're going to use, again, I'm using that big brush first, and I'm going to go ahead and make some light pink. So I'm using a little bit of white and red mixed together to make pink. It doesn't have to be way too light, but you do want it to be a little bit light. And then I'm going to take our moon just a couple inches down from the top and right in the center. And so we're a little closer, the circle's a little closer towards the top end of the canvas, but you can put it in different spots. It's up to you. I'm positioning it there because I'm going to put the cats inside the moon because we're going to make some little cats. And then I'm going to go ahead and just go around that shape and just gently rub the brush with the corner in a sort of a circular motion. But you can fill this in however you want. Just make sure you have that light pink going closest to the moon. And then as we pull out to the edges, we're going to make it a little darker because we want it to be like a night sky, but the moon is going to be glowing, so it's going to have a brighter, lighter color around it. So then as we pull out, though, we can use a little more red. So see how it gets a little bit darker? And then we're going to make it even darker as we pull in a little bit of blue into the red. Make it even darker. But get it all the way around with a little bit of just the more red first before you add blue. And then we can add a little bit of blue to the red. And notice how fast that makes it darker. Now we're not going for like a pitch dark background. So as we add these lighter colors in, you can still mix in a bit of white to make sure it doesn't get way too dark. So depending on your paint, you might need to do that. And notice how as I take it around the canvas, I can pull it into the lighter colors a little bit too. And then you can add more blue to make it darker, because I do want it to be a little darker like in the corners. So maybe like this upper corner or this lower corner. So see, I can just make sure those corners look darker. And then as we pull closer to the middle, you can pull in a little bit more white and make it look a little lighter. Now the purple is going to vary a lot depending on your shades of paint you're starting with. Mine is a decent, I wouldn't say the best purple, using the straight up primaries in this brand. The Liquitex Basics is what I'm using. But if you wanted a more vibrant purple, you could always play with different brands or even just using premix purple paint. I don't do that for the sake of simplicity, but it's always an option, and everybody, to each his own. Like everybody's going to do their own thing. But I want it to be, you know, maybe not as dark around the right upper corner and the left lower corner. So notice I made it dark on the upper left and the lower right, but I made it a little lighter on the upper right and the lower left. But you can do however you want. I'm just making it, giving it some variety. It's still a little darker than right around the moon just because it's purple instead of pink. And purple just has that blue in it, so it's a little darker. You can even do some parts where there's like more blue and white, and maybe it has almost like a bluish color, like what I just did right here, where it looks a little more blue. So play around. All we're using is, at first, we just use that red and white to make pink, and then you start to pull in the blue to create some different shades. And again, you can use more blue and white and make some parts look kind of bluish. I like doing that. It's fun, and it's really whatever that you think looks nice. And then if you got, like, maybe it got too dark up around the moon, you can always clean your brush and come back with that light pink. So sometimes I'll do that. I'll just be like, all right, that got crazy, got too dark, too much blue or whatever. Just come back with that light pink. Well, ideally you want to do this while it's still wet. Go around the moon. Notice how I'm trying to get those edges of the moon nice and crispy, and then just rub in some of that light color right as it comes into the dark color. So if the dark color is still wet, which it probably is if you're not going really slow, if it isn't, you can always re-wet. You can always use more of the dark color too and kind of go back and forth. So I always advise people when you're working with acrylics that blending is an issue for some, especially my savory painters, people who take a longer time. And then for you guys, I don't change who you are. I mean, that's your pace. Don't feel rushed or stressed about it. But I do suggest using a spray bottle while you're painting. You can just spritz your canvas with a little bit of water as you go. It'll keep your paints dry longer. Or you can investigate some brands of paint that are more like slow drying acrylics, like the Golden Open. It's called Golden Open. Or just investigate any kind of slow drying acrylic. And that'll be really helpful for you. Or just simply add pre-mixed water into your paints so that they're a little bit more liquidy. Usually they will dry a little slower that way, but again, just test it out. Now, once I have my background in, I want to go ahead and put a coat of white on the moon. So I'm just cleaning the big brush, and then I'm going to go in with some fresh white and get a coat of white in there. Now, keep in mind with painting, I like to paint because it's so relaxing to be creative. So please have fun with it. Don't let it be stressful. Kind of defeats the purpose. And I have to remind myself of that sometimes. Now, if you're harsh around the edge or it doesn't look really crispy, sometimes I'll just take the edge of the brush with not a lot of paint on and then just smooth out, like just sort of rub right where the pink and white come together to blur it out a little bit like I just did. And sometimes that really helps with just making your shape look a little bit more round. So if yours got a little wonky, sometimes just pulling a little bit of a blur around the edge of the circle is helpful. And you can even kind of use like a radiate out like that just a little bit, and it makes the moon look like it's glowing. So you can do that. You don't have to do that, but you kind of twirl in and then twirl out. And the slower or the faster you do it, the better. If you do it too slow, you can tend to make it look weird. So just let it rip. Now I'm going to splatter some stars in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and take that medium square brush and get the brush wet. Bring it over to my white and mix water into the white until it looks runny. So usually I do a few brushfuls of water. Usually around 3, but maybe a little more or a little less depending on the consistency of your paint. Now you could see that I took some aside right here and made it really runny. You could see that the paint is dripping, so you want it to be like that. If it doesn't drip, you don't have enough water. And then I'm just going to take it, hold the brush steady with your left hand, and then pull the bristles back with your right finger. And just hover around until you get it where you want it. Now, if it doesn't spray apart like this, you don't have enough water. or if it's like running on your canvas, you might have too much water. So you do have to find the consistency that works for you and your materials. But we're going to just stay with that. I'm happy with that. And then you can also add like some texture to your moon if you'd like. So you could use finger painting. I can just grab some like pink on my finger and then just come to the moon shape and then just dab with my finger. Maybe I make a big circle, like rub in a circle, or you could just poke it with your finger with a little bit of paint and it's going to give it this like faint texture. And there's white on there already, which will help it mix in. So it's not too crazy. Or you could even do some blue. Maybe I can get a little bit of blue mixed with white. Not too much. I barely have any paint on my finger because if you get too much, then it's harder to control the way it turns out. But rub and then dab and move your finger around. And it kind of makes it look like moon craters. So I like doing that. It's a fun idea. Take it or leave it, as usual. And then you can even dab some more white on top of it if it got too dark. So play around, go back and forth until you've like got what you want. I do want some like darker edge here for fun. Just fun to add some different colors. It's so hard to stop with this one because it's so fun to do this technique. I really love it, but I'm gonna let it go. So you have some pink, some blue, you can do purple, whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do. Now we're gonna just come in with the black. Go crazy. I'm gonna take the small round brush. You can also use the square. I'll show you the square first, then you can do the round. But you could start with the round if you're not into the square. What's good about doing branches with the square brush is that that's what we're gonna do. Is that you can like go further. There's more bristles on this brush versus the round brush, so you can just get more paint on there and go further with it, which is what I like. And then I'm just gonna load it up like so. You want to make sure your bristles are pulled together as you load it up. So like if you do it to like no smashing, you should really just pat the brush and let it get on the edge. And then we're going to pull some branches from the top and coming out from the bottom. So the top one is just going to go from the upper corner and sweep down above the moon. Just drag the edge of the brush. And your branch is usually going thicker and then thinner. And I'm just doing the big branch first. And then for this one, I really want it to just go right under the moon, not touching it, just going like maybe about an inch or so underneath it. So the cats are gonna go right about here on the canvas. So what I'm gonna do is just go from this corner, maybe not all the way in the corner, but just from the right lower edge. And it's gonna meander up this way. Like so. And I really want it to be a little thicker at the base. This is our thicker branch because this is where the cats are sitting on. So you don't want them on too thin of a branch because that wouldn't be believable. Otherwise the cats would just be, the branch was too thin, the branch would probably break or something. So now that I have the thick part of the branch, I can switch over to the round brush. I'm gonna roll the tip in the black. And then what we can do is make some smaller branches coming out. But again, you're pushing a little harder at first, and then you're releasing pressure softer so that the branches get thinner as you pull out. Or sometimes people like to go out to in. But either way, you want it thicker where it connects to the big branch and then thinner at the tip. So however you want to get to that point is all good. Let's see how I can have some little branches pulling up like that. You can have these extended out a little further, all the way to the right. Just barely make sure, remember to twist the brush to keep the brush nice and pointy. And I'm not using that small of a round brush. This is like a number 4 or something like that. So it's not that small. I actually like working with not too small of a brush, again, because it holds a little more paint just because it's bigger. And I like that. But add as many little branches as you want. This is one of doing branches is so relaxing for me. So I really like to just make a lot of intricate little random branches. Try not to make them too organized. So sometimes when I'm teaching in person, I see the branches really start to get really systematic. My perfectionist-y type people can tend to do that. Like your mind wants to organize it and, you know, and then all the branches wind up looking the same, and it kind of doesn't look natural because in nature all the branches are different. But you want to make them look unique, and some of them can even look a little like broken or just imperfect, so to speak. So I'm pretty good with that. I don't want to go too crazy. And then we can make our little cat. Now we're just going to build up the shapes very gently. Now I'm going to put them right here on this branch, and we're just going to make little ovals. So I'm going to make one little oval, and then I'm going to make another little oval, and they're going to be touching. This one of them is going to be a little smaller. You can make them the same size or whatever you want to do. I'm just different cats. Usually they're a little bit of different size. Usually not exactly the exact same size. Maybe they are sometimes, but notice how you can kind of reshape it a little bit where we need to. And then you're going to make the shoulders it's going to be almost like a little parentheses that goes on top of that oval. It's a little more narrow. And then your heads are going to go on top of that. And those are going to be kind of like smushed circles. We can have this cat's head tilting a little bit. Let's see how I can put the circle a little off or a little bit more tilted towards the other cat. So you can really play around there or whatever, you know. And then the ears are just little triangles that come towards the outer edge of that circle shape. Don't put them too close to the center top part of the head, otherwise it will look kind of like a bunny. And start small. You can always make them bigger, but very hard to make them smaller with the black paint once you got it on there. And then go ahead and color those shapes in, and then you can always smooth out the transitions between your shapes a little bit if they got a little bit awkward. And then maybe I have like tiny little whiskers pulling out from the face, like little tiny little things. And then you have your tails. So I'm gonna just pull the tail down and swirl it that. And the other tail can come maybe close to that and touch it and then swirl the other way. Whatever. Around. Right. You can add any more branches you want, but I'm going to put some little blossoms on the tree. And I'm just going to do some like light pink and white. So I'm going to clean the small round brush, and I'm going to use mostly white with just a little bit of red, very light. And then you can just go to the tips of the branches and put like lots of little dabs. At the tips. So I'm just poking in clusters. That's just going to give it like a fun floral thing going on. And you can do more red if you want it more pinkish, so you can kind of play around with that a little bit. Do any color you want. You could also just leave the branches bare if you want. It doesn't have to have these little dots on it. And then you can do some pure white. So maybe do a soft pink, and then you could do some pure white. And then you can have some highlights. And then we'll wrap it up. So basically, highlights could be like pink. I'm going to do a light blue just because why not? So blue and white. And then you can just go to the top of the branch, a little dab of that blue, will glow. And then on the top branch, you can do it on the bottom because it's whatever's closer to the moon shape is where it's gonna get a highlight. And some of those branches might be too small to add a highlight to, so don't feel like you have to do every single branch. It will be okay. Then you can even do like the cats a little bit, maybe like the tops of the heads and the shoulders on the far side, like that. Now, if the highlights get too loud, just clean the brush, and you can come in with a clean, dry brush and then blend out the highlight a little bit so that that outer edge of the highlight is really the only thing that's really bright, and that towards the center of the shape of the cat, it gets darker. So you can always blend out the highlight. Or if it's really crazy and you don't like it, just paint black back over it. So either you can blend it out, smooth it out. You can do that on the cat shapes and on the branches if you want, if you need to. And I'm going to go ahead and call it done. Again, super simple. We're not trying to be crazy today. So it's just very simple colors. Really don't need to use yellow. I've always put the primaries on the palette just in case I decide I want to use some primaries. But you can customize and use if you like. So you can add some yellow to the moon. You can put some yellow stars in there. However you want to do it. It's up to you. It's your painting. So I just want to, say thank you for painting with me. I really appreciate that you're taking the time to do something good for yourself, because painting is such a relaxing, enjoyable thing to do. It really just gets me out of my head. Hopefully it did the same for you, like gets you out of your normal pattern of thinking, which can generate a lot of stress and unnecessary thinking, allows you to just focus on something a little task that you're making with your own two hands, something that wouldn't have existed without your particular expression, which is one of our superpowers as humans. Like, we are creative, and you are an artist, and you are creative. So even if you don't feel that way inside, I'm telling you now, you are. You are creative, you are an artist. And I hope you let that really sink in and become part of your identity, so that you can allow yourself more of this time, this to be creative and express yourself. So again, thanks so much for watching. Make sure to leave a comment. Let me know what other fun things you'd like to paint, and I hope to paint with you again soon. Have a good day. Bye.